the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
But from this group, so you got Penn State going on 38 years, Notre Dame 36, Colorado 34, Washington 33. Like, Washington obviously almost did it a year ago. They got to the national championship. But if I'm picking the next team from this group, everyone knows I'm a huge Penn State guy on this podcast, right? My number 2 team. But I got to go with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Their 1988 was their last title, 36 years. It feels like Notre Dame, they've been to a national championship game, 2012. They've been to a couple college football playoffs. Like, they're that team, like, as much as Penn State's knocking on the door, like, Notre Dame's knocking on the door even more so. They actually got in a few times. I think Notre Dame is just kind of set up that, maybe in this playoff era, they're actually going to get in probably every single year with what Notre Dame has been as far as a consistent program. And I think from this long drought, they feel like the best candidate.
They're definitely the number 1 team in the independent conference in terms of breaking this drought. I feel best about them in that regard. It's funny. So I was looking at the blue chips ratio start percentage on 3 for last year for them, and Ohio State was 1, Bama was 2, was 3, Florida was 4, and Notre Dame was 5 on that list. So I think one of the things that people miss about Notre Dame, and it speaks to what you're saying, it's like it's a long drought, and people make fun of the Notre Dame drought and being overrated. Like, SEC fans love to hate Notre Dame, but like, Notre Dame has talent. Like, Notre Dame, they're putting dudes in the NFL. They obviously recruit really well at tight end. They recruit really well on the offensive line. They recruit well at running back. They recruit well at receiver. They recruit well, obviously, on defense too. Like, they put so many dudes in and defensive backs, linebackers, this and the other. Like, they're putting together a lot of talent. They develop talent really well. Brian Kelly obviously won a lot of games, but Marcus Freeman, he also hires really well. You steal the LSU offensive coordinator back to South Bend this offseason, who obviously had a great season with Jaden Daniels and company, leading him to a Heisman. That's really exciting if you're a Notre Dame fan. You're obviously appealing for the transfer quarterback market. Sam Hartman last year. You bring in Riley Leonard this year that we talked about on last week's show. But you also, CJ Carr coming in there, highly touted quarterback. You've recruited some 4 and 5 stars in that regard. I think Notre Dame, to me, the thing that I am maybe most curious about with them ending that drought is not even really the independent status. And where, like you said, I think they're going to be a perennial playoff team. I just think they're kind of in that mode where I need to see that final boss when it comes to elite quarterback play. And we haven't seen it yet. I think it's going to require, with the expanded playoff, they're going to have the talent, I think, to beat a lot of different teams, but they're not going to be able to ultimately get over the hump until one of these quarterbacks pops in a way, or they develop somebody who has a 2-year run. Because Ian Book was fun. He made those Georgia, like, they were right there in those Georgia games years ago, but we haven't seen Notre Dame.
They were playing Alabama close in that college football playoff.
Right. But it feels like they had, like, obviously the Jimmy Clausens, the Brady Quinns of the world in the early 2000s. And it's like, can you imagine Brady Quinn in the system where you're like, they just need everything to coalesce. Like, I don't think they're going to be a team that wins multiple titles, but would it surprise me in the next 10 to 15 years Notre Dame gets a championship? No. I don't think would it surprise you if they break this streak before it gets to 50?
50. That next 14 years, I could see them doing that, because 14 years is a good thing. Because, hot take here, I'm still not sold on Marcus Freeman. Like, I know they've upgraded on the recruiting trail, but like, you look at what this Notre Dame team was, like, 6 of the last 7 years Brian Kelly was there, this team finished top 15, and 3 of those were top 5 finishes. Like, neither of the finishes so far in 2023, 2022 or 2023 for Marcus Freeman have been top 15 finishes. So he didn't exactly take over a rebuild, and they haven't been as good on the field the last couple of years. So I know he's improved the level they're recruiting at, but you give me 14 years, like that means another guy could come in by that point and get breakthrough and win a national championship for them. So I would probably bet for Notre Dame to not let this thing get to 50. But I don't know. It'll be tough.
I mean, they'll be tough, but I also think they're in the conversation. I think they're going to be right there. They just need some breaks. I think a lot, they're like you said with Penn State, they're right there with, I think they're even better shape than like Wisconsin or even a Michigan State. I think they're somewhere. It's funny. Like they kind of, I guess I would probably throw out like one of the things that I worry most about with Notre Dame getting to that point. It hasn't really shown up in the recruiting is the academic requirements. Like that's always been something you worry about with Notre Dame's upside in today's landscape. And I mean, it's hard with Michigan transfers. You saw that in basketball, a lot of getting into the school, and that process can be a little bit arduous, but Michigan just won a title with high academic expectations and I guess restrictions or what have you. But I don't know. I look at it, if Michigan can do it, like are you going to tell me, Matt, that Notre Dame can't do what Michigan built? Like they can't get close to that? I don't see why not, in my opinion.
That was actually my exact thought. Like it takes a Jim Harbaugh. Like that's what it's going to take. Like you have to get a great coach. But
like Urban Meyer could have won a title if he had taken that job instead of Ohio State when he was at Ohio State. Like he wins a title, right?
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, he's one of the best coaches in college football. I don't think Notre Dame is that far away. Like you said, like for what they've done with some of those teams, and you think about Ian Book was the first quarterback you named. Like, is that the best quarterback of this past decade for Notre Dame? Like a good history. You know, there's like probably 10 top 10 finishes in the last 15 years or so. I'm guessing off the top of my head. Like they've been a really consistent program, but no real like transcendent talents at quarterback. So like maybe that's all it's going to take. And you'll bet on them because they do so many things well. You brought up Michigan State. I didn't even have them on my list.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.